The only thing that we're interested in is putting money in your wallet. If you want to bet the fights, if you want to have a little bit of action, you are in the right place. With my partner, Ian Parker, I am Brett Okamoto.
We're ready to rock between our parlays, our props, our straight picks. It's time to make money. Let's go.
After a week in Atlantic City, the UFC is back in the friendly confines of Las Vegas for a UFC Fight Night middleweight main event between number 6, Brendan Allen, number 14, Chris Curtis. Is a rematch of a fight that took place in 2021. So we will be speaking about that and every other fight on this UFC Fight Night card alongside Ian Parker. I am Brett Okamoto here for UFC Best Bets. And as we always do, Ian, before we get to this weekend's UFC Fight Night card in Las Vegas. Hey, man, we've been doing this show basically every single week in 2024. I feel like we've been hitting parlays. We've been hitting props left and right. Eventually, you're going to have a little bit of a slower week. And I feel like maybe, but not even all that bad last week. But I feel like maybe we missed out on a couple ones that we felt good on last week in Atlantic City.
You know what, Brett? For me in gambling terms, this felt like I took a bath here because there are some that we lost that were just unlucky. Look, Matthews, Bazookia, that looked like we were cruising, and then he won the knockout. Matthews, Jamal Emmers looked great, but like Nate Landauer said, if you don't beat him, you're probably gonna lose. And then Luque just looked like he didn't show it up. The other ones that we did hit, Cheating, Giochiani, Menon Fior with the plus odds, which was great. You know, the other part that really kind of got to me a little bit are parlay missed, and then the long shot prop, Chris Weidman by KO Ortega plus 1,200. Look, there were a lot of eye pokes. There was a lot of craziness going on. Some of the books actually did pay out to people because some of the rules are what they announced in the cage. However, to me, that's a loss. But we move on to this week. Let's go.
Yep. Moving on to this next week, and as I mentioned, it is back in Las Vegas, inside the Apex. You can find it at 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific on ESPN Plus. It's another 6-fight main card headlined by Brendan Allen, Chris Curtis. It was supposed to be Marvin Vettori. Chris Curtis has made a reputation and a career about stepping into these fights on short notice, and the last time he did it against Brendan Allen, he actually won, which is, I think, why this fight, in a sense, does make sense because based on their records recently, based on their standing, you know, Brendan Allen has been obviously very worthy of facing somebody up there in the rankings. He takes on Chris Curtis, who did step in on short notice in 2021 and upset him on some pretty wide odds. What do you think of the betting line here in this rematch?
You know what? When Chris Curtis won, different time, different setting. Curtis just come off the win over Hawes. You know, I think he was still being overlooked by a lot of people, and you know he carries power. But since then, Brendan Allen's been on quite the roll. I believe he's on a 6-fight winning streak, and he's been calling for top-level competition. You know, when the real, I think, turnaround fight for him, the one that really brought it out of him, was the Andre Muniz fight where he went and subbed him, you know, and then his last fight where he won as well. He knows what Chris Curtis can do. Chris Curtis carries a lot of power. He's a counter striker. He doesn't throw a lot of volume. He's very durable. He's hard to take down. This is a much different fighter than Marvin Vettori, you know. However, for Brendan Allen, he's got to stay away from the power. I think he's a lot smarter than he was 3 or 4 years ago when they fought. I think back then he was extremely cocky. I think now there's a different level of confidence with the maturity and growth through the career. And you know what? This line keeps fluctuating a little bit. I've seen it go as low as minus 190 to minus 210. But Brett, my favorite pick out of all of it is over 2.5 rounds here. You know, Chris Curtis is extremely durable. We know Brendan Allen is going to be very weary of that left hand of Curtis. I think this is going to go deep. I do think Brendan Allen gets the win here. I think he's got more weapons. We've seen Chris Curtis, look, against Marc-Andre Barriault, it could have went either way. Against Jack Hermanson, he kind of just stood there and let Hermanson dictate the dance. And I think Brendan Allen's got enough blueprints here to figure out how to beat Chris Curtis, and I think he does. But the main priority play, over 2.5 rounds for this one.
All right, so we'll take a main event play on the total. Just real quick before we move on to the co-main event, I always like to do this, man. You know this, and we do it all the time in other sports. You know, if the Eagles are playing the Cowboys, we look at what the line was 3 weeks ago when they played as compared to now. And so I did look it up that Brendan Allen was a minus 365 favorite. Now, like you said, these are much different fighters now, but minus 365 and now all the way down to minus 210. So any thoughts just on, I know we're taking a side here on the total, but do you think there is possibly some value on Brendan Allen here because of the wide discrepancy in what this was the first time they fought?
Well, as a New York Giants fan, I wish you used 2 other football teams that I didn't completely root against every time they were out. For me, look, I do like Brendan Allen here. I would take a shot at that number even at minus 210. I think a lot of people look at the first matchup and they see how Brendan Allen has lost in the past. You look at the way he fought Sean Strickland and Strickland's return to the UFC in middleweight. Same thing. Brendan Allen has been tagged before. He's been rocked. But I think the improvements between the two are the evolution in the game. I don't think Curtis has gotten any better. I think Curtis is good. I think he's a very good litmus test for any fighter in this division. He's had some really strong wins. We saw him knock out Joaquin Buckley. Again, he beat Brendan Allen. I just think Allen has gotten better. I think the higher ceiling belongs to Brendan Allen. I'm a little surprised he took this fight. I know it makes sense in regards to wanting to get one back. But going from fighting a Vettori to fighting this far back in the rank, a little weird, but I do like Brendan Allen overall as well.
It is a little weird. And he is saying that, now that he is taking this fight, he's done with Marvin Vettori and he's eyeing higher matchups. We'll see. It's a very, very jam-packed at the top 185-pound division. A lot to play out here in 2024. Let's go on to the co-main event. You got Hernandez taking on Jackson. And Hernandez, since dropping to featherweight from lightweight, Alexander Hernandez is only 1-2 in those 3 appearances. But Vegas likes him here at minus 210. What do you think of this line?
You know what? These are two fighters that are pretty inconsistent. And Alex Hernandez, we know how strong he is. We know how physical he can be. But, Brett, if you look at the 2 out of his last 3 losses against guys who have good cardio, who are long and rangy and taller than him, and he's going into something like that with Damon Jackson right now. I think for Damon Jackson, the value is actually here. If he could stay away from the power of Hernandez. Look, Hernandez got a decision over Jim Miller. Couldn't knock him out. For me, I think Damon Jackson, if he could weather the early storm, I think he's actually the better, not better wrestler, but better grappler. He's smarter with positioning. You saw it in the Sabatini fight. You've seen in other fights. Damon Jackson is excellent on the ground when he's able to get top position. If he can match the physicality of Hernandez, I think that there's some value there. And I'm going to even take it a little bit of a step further here. We may have something with Damon Jackson a little bit later in the show.
Yeah, I like the pick. Damon Jackson has cashed as an underdog previously in his UFC career. He's just a smart guy, smart fighter. Again, a little bit of a physicality matchup here against Alex Hernandez, but if he can do that, I like his fight IQ in there. And as I understand it, we have a long shot prop to add to this co-main event before we get to the rest of this main card. What is it?
I did say later in the show. I should have said really, really soon up in the show. For me, I'm going to take a long shot prop here. Damon Jackson, right now. What a real sneak peek here, right? 30 seconds later. I'm going to go Damon Jackson, round 3 TKO KO. I think that's how he gets it done. Take this into deeper waters. And by deep waters, it's not a 5-round fight, it's 3. But Hernandez he does not have a good tank in those later rounds. Jackson can do it here. I see Hernandez gassing out the way he did against Billy Q and Damon Jackson getting on top and finishing him. It's a possibility at plus 4,500. I'm willing to roll the dice there on something small.
All right, so there's our co-main event. And so later in the show, and when I say later in the show, I mean right now. Let's get to the rest of this main card.
Right now, yeah.
Taking on Chepe Mariscal in a 145-pound fight. What do you think about this?
You know what? I like Morgan here. Chepe Mariscal is tough. He's a dog, but Morgan is the more technical striker. I think he carries more power here, and I think if he can slow down Chepe and not let it become a dogfight, use the striking from the outside, I think he gets it done. I think he's got the higher ceiling as a prospect. I'm going to go with him.
Okay, from there we go to lightweight division. Ignacio Bahamundes taking on Christos Giagos. Bahamundes, pretty big favorite here, minus 360. You're going with an over.
I'm going to go over 1.5 here. I think Bahamundes is better, light years ahead. Giagos carries power early on, but if you look at Bahamundes' wins, even when he's got the finish, it's coming the middle to the end of the second round into the third. Giagos is going to come forward hard early on. If he can just get past that onslaught of Giagos, I expect to finish rounds 2 or 3 for Bahamundes. He should bounce back after that last loss to Ludovic Klein.
And from there, we go to Walter Walker taking on Lucas Bresky in a heavyweight fight. You're taking a total on this one as well.
I'm going to go over 1.5 here. Listen, Walter Walker, the brother of Johnny Walker, you go look at his wins. He's got a lot of knockouts, but he's got a lot of decisions too. Even the knockouts were coming at the end of round 2 into the beginning of round 3. And Lucas Brzezski, outside of his last fight, his other 2 against better heavyweights, all went to a decision. Let's go over 1.5 here.
And then an interesting lightweight fight to close it out, actually to start off this main card. It's Trevor Peek taking on Charlie Campbell. Campbell is the favorite, but you like Trevor Peek here at plus 155.
You know what? Charlie Campbell may be the more skilled fighter. He may be able to take this fight to the ground, but we know he's not going to do that. We've seen his fights. It's kill or be killed, and Trevor Peek he throws this punch, a hammer fist, as a right cross. And for me, it's a durability. He's training at high altitude, so the cardio is not going to be an issue. If he pushes the pace, I think he's going to get the upset here. If Campbell doesn't wrestle, I think he gets knocked out. We're going to go with Trevor Peek at plus 155.
All right, so a nice little underdog pick there to close out the main card. And from there, let's go straight to the prelim picks, which you can find also on ESPN Plus at 3 Eastern, 12 Pacific. Run us through our prelim picks for this UFC Fight Night.
Brad, I'm going to prepare you, man. There's a lot of picks here that dogs are going to be barking. Let's go Court McGee, Alex Morano. I think Morano gets it done, but I'm going to go over 2.5 and get better odds here. McGee knocked out his last 2 fights. Morano's not a knockout artist. However, I think his speed's going to be it. Jermaine Durandamy returning to the UFC after quite the layoff, but she's fighting Norma Dumont, who we usually take. Such a size difference here. If this fight stays on the feet, GDR gets it done at plus 125. Love those odds. Falco versus Hugo, short notice fight. Keep an eye on the odds on Hugo there. I do like him. I'm going Cynthia Calvillo, even though she's lost 6 in a row. Pierre Rodriguez coming off the loss to Jillian Robertson, not fought the same level of competition. I thought Calvillo beat Lupi Goynez in her last fight. Give me the dog there. Matsumoto looked phenomenal in the Contenders Series. Argueta coming off technically 2 no contest, but a loss. I'm going Matsumoto also as our prop of the night by decision. Let's go Cesar Almeida as a dog. And last but not least, Molds at minus 380 is a high number. Maybe take her by decision when the odds come out over Nora. And we're going to go with that for our prelim picks.
All right, so we're taking some dogs on the main card, on the prelims. That bodes well for our long shot parlay, since you like some underdogs here. What do we got for the long shot parlay?
Brent, I think this may be the long shot one that we hit this year. It's been quite a time that we actually hit one. So let's go. Give me Peak. Give me Jermaine Durandamy. Give me Cynthia Calvillo. Give me Cesar Almeida. Look for Almeida. Keep the fight on the feet. You win. For Calvillo, don't stay on your back for 3 rounds. Set the pace. You're good. Jermaine Durandamy, keep it on the feet. And Trevor Peak, just bring the violence and do what you do best. And we're going to cash that out at plus 2611. Let's go.
All right, so there's your best bets long shot parlay. How about just the best bets for this UFC Fight Night on Saturday?
I'm getting a little frisky this week, Brett. I'm going to even got 2 dogs there. Let's start off with the main event, over 2.5 rounds. And you know what? You read my mind, per usual. Brendan Allen, minus 210. At the time, I'm going to be honest, he was at minus 195, so that has jumped. I wouldn't go any higher than this. I do think he gets it done pretty easily. Bahamondes Giagos, over 1.5 rounds. Walker Bresky, over 1.5 rounds. Jermaine Durandamy at plus 125. Gene Matsumoto, also, Brett, a bonus pick. Cesar Almeida, I love him at dog odds. I want to add that in there. If you're feeling frisky like I am, let's go.
All right, so there are your Parker's best bets. And now here is the Parker's parlay, which just like last week, it is boosted and live on the ESPN app, meaning that you should only be getting plus 150 odds for this, but because it's a boosted parlay of the week, you'll be getting plus 170, and we are going with a 3-teamer here on the boosted parlay, Ian.
We are. Last week, it did not come through after being on quite the little streak. I want to get started again, so I think I'm going a little safe with the 3-legger here. Give me B.A. Brendan Allen, Ignacio Bahamondes, and Alex Morano. Plus 150, boosted up to plus 170. Let's go.
Yes, sir, man. I mean, I said it last week. I think that this is one of the very cool things that we offer here. We're always looking for value on this show, and you're getting free value. A plus 150 parlay 3-teamer moves up to plus 170. If you're just 21 and older, download that ESPN BET app. You'll find it right there. I think it's available on the home screen, or just go to the MMA page, and you will find the boosted parlay of Ian Parker. Parlay for this week. And that is it for us on the UFC Fight Night. We got a big show coming up next week, UFC 300 in Las Vegas, T-Mobile Arena. I will be there. Ian will be there. We're talking about all of those fights in detail. That is going to be a heck of a card to watch, heck of a card to break down. So look for us next week in Vegas. Until then, enjoy the fights this week at UFC Apex, and thanks for watching.